Hi everyone, it is week 11 and I am excited to bring you a special interview with Jim Masterson, CEO of LightEdge. Jim has over 25 years of experience in the telecommunications and technology industries, and I just know you are going to love the nuggets that you pick up from the time I got to spend with Jim. Now, a little more about Jim Masterson before I cut to his interview. Jim assumed the CEO role at LightEdge in 2004 and has now positioned the company as the premier provider in the enterprise cloud-based IT, data center co-location, and telecommunications services. As a tribute to his accomplishments, he actually earned the distinction of the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year regional finalist in both 2006 and 2013. Prior to LightEdge, he held several founding member executive management positions in some of the most successful and respected companies in the telecommunications and technology industry, including Rhythms Net Connections, US West Enterprise Data Networking, and US Internetworking. Enjoy this interview with Jim Masterson. Get out your paper, get out your pens. You're going to need them. There's good stuff in this. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to introduce Jim Masterson, CEO of LightEdge. Jim, thanks so much for taking your time with me today. We're filming this outside, beautiful day here in Denver, Colorado, and I just want to dive into some questions with you.
Sure.
Now, obviously, I went through Jim's background here a little bit ago for all of you, but Jim, I just wanted you to, if you could, take a few minutes, kind of step us through your career that ultimately led you to being CEO of LightEdge.
Well, it was a path less followed, so a crooked path. I would probably summarize it, but I would say that the biggest factor, Matt, that I think that when I look back, it was taking risks. Some of the risks were small, some of them were much larger. I mean, at the end of the day, after I had gone through some positive experiences as an executive, to very negative experiences in executives, I came to the conclusion that with a humility backdrop, that my skill set was in the area of leadership and was in the area, therefore, I wanted to be a CEO. I had seen what ego could do when you had a CEO or a leader who first thought of themselves. And the damage that could do. And in one of the opportunities that I had as a worldwide VP of sales and marketing, I saw it firsthand. And I vowed to myself I would never let that happen again, because I had ultimately built a very large team at this company, and we picked the wrong CEO. I didn't, but the founder did. And the result of that is that the biggest risk I took is I said to myself, I want to be a CEO. I'm not going to let this happen again. But I didn't do that, and I'm convinced I didn't do that with ego as a backdrop. I did that with a fairly humble understanding of my strengths and weaknesses. And the one strength that I think that God had given me was one of leadership. And so I set about looking for that opportunity. And ironically, that opportunity at the time, I was living in Seattle, Washington. My wife was in her dream home. We loved the place. And ironically, what happened, I find the opportunity in Des Moines, Iowa. And love Des Moines, but at the end of the day, having to ask your wife to give up her dream home and move to Des Moines because of a passion and a vision that I had for myself, and that she did it. She followed me. And so I guess what I would tell you is that for me, risk-taking was a big part of it. But I highlight something additional to that, which is risk-taking without humility. And what I mean by that is risk-taking without understanding your strengths and weaknesses. Truly understanding your strengths and weaknesses will lead you to some pretty big mistakes. But risk-taking with some level of understanding of your skills and weaknesses and some level of humility, I think it was a big factor in the career that I took.
Interesting. Well, you were involved in a lot of startup companies, and you've now taken LightEdge kind of out of that startup realm, but you really kind of came in at that point and took it and said, we're kind of starting over, and here we go, we're going to build this new business. As you look at that startup environment, I mean, let's talk about two things. First of all, when you're in that startup environment and you're dealing with pretty major risks at that point, how do you best manage those as either a CEO of the organization or as an individual in the sales or marketing department? How do you manage that risk, and how do you kind of take that on a daily basis?
Well, I think that, to be honest with you, which is why part of it is I like to build teams. And sometimes you get the luxury of building a team from the ground up, which is typically startups. So in startups, you get a chance to build the team, which at the end of the day, you're handpicking people to work with you. And when that happens, you have a natural inclination and instinct to trust and leverage those people that you hire, because you hired them specifically because you thought they were the best you could get. And so several of the opportunities that I had in my career, I had the opportunity to build teams from the ground up. And to be honest with you, it was much, much easier when you do that in the sense of managing risk or growing something from nothing, versus what LightEdge was, to be honest with you, was more of a turnaround, a financial turnaround. It was bordering on bankruptcy. And when I took it over, the amount of effort and time it took to turn it around, quotes, financially, took me much longer than I originally expected. And part of that was this management of managing of what to do from a risk standpoint. Where do you place your bets when you're in financial straits? Those risks go way up, because now you make the wrong mistake and you've cost yourself money potentially, or something worse. And so the risk went way up, which made it more difficult, because now I'm working with a group of people I've never worked with before, because I didn't have the luxury of building the team from the ground up. I assumed a team and had to manufacture that kind of trust between me and these new people in the company. So how I did it, to be honest with you, was I had to take more than one opinion in many cases on what kind of a decision we were about to make. I sought out other aspects of the organization from an opinion standpoint, and at the end of the day, the CEO's got to make the decision at the end of the day, but I tried to garner and gather as much information as I could from people I thought were the right people within the company at the time, and I took their opinions, and then I had to make the call.
Right.
That was the best I could do at making, kind of avoiding risk or making the right decisions to move this company out of the financial straits it was in into a healthy, fulfilling company.
Okay. Well, and what's interesting about that is you gather the data, and then you're at that decision point and you have to do something. And often I think a lot of us, we don't want to take that action and take that step forward, because it is a very scary thing to do, right? We all face it on a daily basis. It's personal lives, professional lives, whatever we're at. But, as you are looking to make those decisions and actually take that step forward, because this whole program is about the mental side of our personal lives and our business lives, right? And it's often our minds that hold us back from what we want to achieve. So how did you mentally kind of overcome that? How did you approach that, where you said, when I'm making this decision, it's done, and we're going to take this step forward? How did you mentally kind of work through that to say, go?
Yeah, it's a real interesting dynamic, because at the end of the day, for me, it was fulfilled because the decisions that had to be made on a daily basis all went back to the root of the vision and the faith in what we were trying to accomplish. So the same confidence, the same passion that led me from Seattle to Des Moines to take on this particular challenge was so compelling, was such a profound belief that I could accomplish this, that when it came time to make these difficult decisions of whatever they were, it always came back to that same, did I believe in what I was trying to accomplish? And at the end of the day, if you do, you're gonna make some mistakes. I've made more mistakes than I've made the right decisions. But it was that fundamental passion, that fundamental confidence, that belief in what we were trying to accomplish, that if I was placed in this role that I was placed in as CEO, I had to, if you will, overcome the insecurities of making these decisions. Because what I found as time went by, a lot of people have opinions, to your point. A lot of people have opinions, but those people that can step up and put it on the line when it needs to be put on the line, that have the internal fortitude to make those decisions, those are the executives, those are the leaders, those are the people that are being sought out by the leaders of those companies, are the people that can step up and take charge and do something, move the ball up the field. So for me, it came back to, look, nobody's got the answer from my perspective. You're talking about a company in my situation that was bankrupt for all intents and purposes. So clearly whoever was running the company before that and whoever the investors were at the time, they clearly didn't know what they were doing. So how wrong could I be? So at the end of the day, I just started swinging for the fence, if you will, because I figured, look, if I don't, I had already assumed a mess. So what was the worst I could do? Just leave it in the mess was pretty much where it was. So if that makes sense, it was really about going back to the same root of that confidence that made the initial decision possible, and then just having the fortitude and the learning, the experiential learning of taking risks that for me culminated in the ability to make the decisions that needed to be made in such critical points in time for a company like this.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, because at the end of the day, it's like I have a vision. I know where we're going.
Yep.
I don't necessarily know how we're going to get there, but I'm going to take the steps necessary because I believe in myself. I believe what I've done in the past, and I'm willing to step out.
Yep.
And see what happens.
That actually, it's really funny, Matt, because you almost stated it. My first speech to the employees of this company. Now remember, I walk in the door, these employees are just, the company's in a mess, and they know it. The founders are, playing golf every day, and I when it comes to not building a team, which is, as I said, in many ways is easier when you can do that, but having to assume the helm of a group of people that don't know me or don't know the situation at the level they probably should. My first speech to them, we had coined the Gold Dome speech. And the Gold Dome speech was simply me standing in front of all the employees at the time. And behind me was, out the window, we were on the 12th floor of this building in downtown Des Moines. Out the window of this building, it overlooked the capital of Iowa. Okay. And it was the Gold Dome of the Capitol. And I remember saying exactly, word for word, what you just said. I looked at these people who were looking at me like, who are you? And I looked at them and I said, look, here's the deal. Here, I'm going to help create a vision for what I think we need to take this company and point it into the wind and have some fun doing it. But I'm going to tell you right now, all I can tell you is I know where that is. It's that Gold Dome right there. That's where we're going. We're going to that Gold Dome. But what I don't know is I don't know how we're going to get there. I'm looking forward to you guys helping me figure out the alleys, the buses, the taxis, the waterways that gets me over to that Gold Dome. So I'm going to rally you all behind that vision of the Gold Dome vision, but you're going to have to help me get there, because the easy part to some degree is the vision. The hard part is executing on the vision.
Absolutely right. The Gold Dome speech.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the most complicated things, I think, to either build a team, run a team, inherit a team, whatever you're trying to do.
Yep.
It's a very tough thing to do. Kind of staying on that subject for a minute, you look at the teams around you, whether LightEdge, other companies you've been on, what are the attributes that you look for in people?
Yeah.
Obviously, maybe it's to fill a gap that you have, whether it's you're looking for the best of the best. I mean, who do you seek out?
Yeah, it would take a complete chapter of a book I could write on that topic, because what I've really experienced over my career is how difficult it is to find those needle in the haystack talent, leadership, and I think some of the core characteristics when I think about the faces that I've run across that fit that, it was characteristics like just the confidence to step up and move the ball up the field. Have an idea. Don't wait for others to come up with the idea. Don't sit in the shadows and hope somebody else comes up with the idea. Executives like myself, we're desperately looking for people with ideas. And we're desperately looking for people that are willing to step up and share those ideas. Because what we're not looking for is to beat somebody down if it's the bad idea. We're literally just looking for ideas. Because where do you think this stuff comes from? It's not like I go home at night when it comes to whatever the strategy or tactics are of the company. I don't go home at night and go, I've got it all figured out, and come in the next morning and we just execute on what it is I thought about over dinner. It comes up to looking to other people to assist in those ideas, and then stepping up and actually doing something with the idea. And I've got people that in my company today and in the companies in the past, I have one or two in the company today that are 25 years old that have stepped up is the way I would characterize it, and actually tried to move the ball up the field with an idea or with a concept. They're not afraid to pitch it, put it out front. And more often than not, those people are going to get ahead. And those 25-year-old kids in our company today are frankly my best and brightest. I'm building the company around them because they had a core characteristic, which was they were willing to step up. Now there's all of the other stuff that you assume is there to begin with, the ability to communicate, being a nice person and easy to get along. All those things are there, but it's that extra element that is in some shape or form a risk-taking element. And it takes a lot of risk when you're a 25-year-old kid, probably your first or second job out of college, and for you to be in front of an executive or more than one executive, and for you to actually step up in that environment with an idea and even present the idea, man, that's powerful. I get chills thinking about when I see that kind of passion, that kind of confidence, not ego, but confidence and passion like that. That's something that myself or anybody is going to double down on all day long.
That's a great point, because how many of us have sat in a cube? I've been in cubes a lot of my career. How many of us have sat there, thought we had an idea, but either thought it wasn't good enough or didn't want to take that risk to step up and do that? You could be in a sales role and you've got a pretty extensive sales background, but it's almost, well, I've got this idea, I should call this client, but I can't take that extra step to pick up the phone or to approach my boss and say, how do we attack this client? How do we get after this this one industry? But that's a very powerful thing. What makes you be willing to take those risks? I mean, you look back at your career. Is it people around you? Is it your history? Like, what is it that kind of fuels Jim Masterson to be like, let's go, I'm doing it?
I actually remember. I can almost. We don't have time for this today, but I could probably identify a handful, 5 or 6 specific what I call pivot points in a career, and in this case, in what we're talking about, my background, and 5 or 6 specific pivot points in my background that were game changers. Some of them, 1 or 2 of them were big game changers. The other 4 or 5 of them were just game changers enough to move me to the next step. And those were probably the most critical ones, those very first ones. And when I think about how I would characterize those, I think it would be that I approached it like nobody, I guess I understood, and maybe this is because of the way I grew up in life, I never really put a lot of people on pedestals. So I never looked to others, executives or whatever, as just having all the answers. I always had kind of a fundamental, I think, understanding or humility about human beings, which we're all flawed. Everybody's flawed. And so if you approach things like, this kind of goes back to the stepping up thing, if you approach things like somebody else has all the answers, well, then that's what you're going to get from a career standpoint. You're just going to wait for somebody to show you lead you to water and help you drink the water. But at the end of the day, when I think of the things that I stepped up that changed, that made a difference, even the small ones, it was because I approached it like, well, why not? I mean, why not step up for it? Why not kind of take a swing at it? I mean, what was the worst that could happen, I figured? Because now I didn't have the greatest, educational experience. I wasn't an Ivy Leaguer. I didn't have a lot of the pedigree that others I competed with have or had. But what I did have was a basic understanding about humanity and a basic understanding the fact that nobody has it all figured out. So why not me? It was why not me step up? And I know that can sound potentially quaint, but it's real. It's a fundamental element to risk taking. If you can just look at it from the perspective of, well, why not? that. I mean, if you can get comfortable, even small steps, get comfortable with, well, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's not like it's the end of the world. Those things compound themselves to the point you'll get to that decision where it's a decision to pack up and move from a Seattle, Washington to Des Moines, Iowa. But it's not something that you step up to day one. You don't find yourself graduated from college or taking your first sales role or leadership role, and all of a sudden you're just able to carry the biggest bat on your shoulder and take the biggest swings and have the biggest output possibly. That's just not going to happen. Now it happens to some of the greats that we read about, right? But most people that drive this economy and drive this world as far as relationships and business go, that are the leaders, those people have built careers based upon one small step, and the steps get bigger. Ultimately, you'll be to the point where, unfortunately, it takes a little bit of age to get there sometimes, but you get to the point where you're willing to step up and make that small decision on a much larger scale.
Interesting. Yeah, it's almost as those small decisions come, you gain that confidence in yourself, you're willing to make that next small decision, and all of a sudden, you're probably making pretty big decisions, and
absolutely,
you look back and don't know how you got there.
Absolutely,
So,
exactly.
Absolutely right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I think the key lesson here, and there's so many nuggets here, is be willing to step out. And I think part of it too is I would urge each of you to take a few minutes and even think back to your past career experiences or relationship experiences, whatever it is. But I bet you've taken more risks than you think you have and that you know you have. And once you reflect on that and understand it, that boy, I've done a lot of really cool things. I put my neck out there a couple times. You can use that as leverage. You can use that to build your confidence and take that next step. So make sure you do that. I think that's one key point I wanted to touch on real quick.
What you just stated there, this idea of reflection, this idea, I think that's a great coaching moment there, Matt, because reflection to me translates into the development of wisdom. It's one thing to do things, but if you're not reflecting on what just happened, then you're right. You've lost the opportunity. You've lost the experiential, learning. But if you're reflecting, and that's a humble reflection, right, on both positives and negatives, you slowly start to develop wisdom. And I think that's a powerful statement that you made.
Oh, that's great. Well, hopefully all of you take some time to reflect after this interview. And Jim, I just want to ask you a few more questions.
Sure.
I know you're busy. I'm just thankful for your time. So. Obviously, we're talking about that mental toughness, right? And how I define it, and everyone watching knows how I define it, but you don't necessarily do, so I'll tell you how I define it. I break it into kind of 4 different areas. So it's about confidence, focus, so I'm focused on the right things. It's about control, which is all emotional control. How do we channel our emotions? And perseverance. So confidence, focus, control, and perseverance. As you kind of hear those words, and even as you hear mental toughness, you look at those 4 ways I define it, and think about yourself, think about your company. What's one that just sticks out and you're like, I want to get better at that, or I want my company to be better at that?
Well, I might take more than one.
Okay.
But I would tell you that this idea of what do you call it, emotional self-control?
Yeah, emotional control.
The way I translate that in what I see on a daily basis is, when times get tough, anybody can go to what I call the misery pit. It's very easy to follow the leader or just follow your peers into the misery pit. Anybody can do that, right? It's easy to stay stuck in the mire. It's those individuals that can control that emotion when things are tough. And things will be tough. And when they are, it's just easy to go to the misery pit. It's those people that can, a lot of people go there, I've been there, but it's how fast you get out of that misery pit. It's how fast you can control that emotion and get out and step back up again. And have then, back to your first point, which was the confidence in proceeding. Because what I find with our company right now, and we're going through some challenges and some changes. It's good stuff, but it's challenges. Anything that has the term change in it is always something that is a risky situation. Right. Well, we're going through some change right now, and you can see those individuals that can't control that emotion are really a problem, because we've got to control that emotion. And so I would probably tell you that for me right now, it's probably that emotional self-control. Next to that, I would tell you that it's perseverance, because the two go hand in hand, right? If you can deal with the challenge of the day, and again, back to small steps, deal with the one challenge that you're dealing with, get out of the misery pit, you will persevere, right? It's those people that don't persevere. When I see them leave the company, when they do leave it, a lot of times, they just can't keep up. They just are more comfortable when they're challenged. They have a difficulty stepping up and staying at the level of passion and confidence that they should have. It's just so easy for people to fall backwards. And so I think, to be honest with you, ironically, because I might not have said this a month or two ago, but this idea of emotional self-control is resonating with me based on your four groupings there, because of that misery pit dynamic.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. It is so easy just to fall in that trap.
Yeah.
Because it is. And all of a sudden you're taken out of that present moment. You're thinking about all the past failures or all the past challenges and how difficult it was to come through, instead of taking that next step of saying, but I made it through that other challenge, so why can't I do it again?
Yeah.
And I am going to do it again and take those next steps.
Yeah.
So that's
I have this very young leader. He's a sales director in one of our markets. He's actually in charge of our biggest market. He's probably only 28 years old, 29 years old, and it's his first leadership position. I took a real chance, but he had the fundamentals that we're talking about here, that I'm a big believer that, you know, as you kind of go through life and people go, well, you're looking to particular do this type of job, and they go, well, it doesn't look like you've ever done it. Well, how are you ever going to get the experience if you've never done it, right? Well, this was one of those things where this individual wanted this opportunity, and a lot of people probably wouldn't have done it, but I took the shot. And today, this last week, we had a particular issue arise in his marketplace that was out of his control. So operations impacted the sales organization. Mm-hmm. So it's easy, right? Salespeople and sales management, it's very easy to basically look back at operations and go, well, you see, that's why I can't get anything done. It's because of these operations people. Well, again, it's easy to do that. Anybody can do that. Yes. And I watched. I didn't coach him. I wanted to see if he could box his way out of this. And the good news is he did. Now, I think he might have had some help on the back end with people that know how I think about these things, might have been feeding him information about this, but he did step up, and he led his group out of that. Because typically when bad things happen in business, in sales, or whatever the situation is, they're usually not catastrophic unless you've got a real problem, right? But they're usually a 24-hour, 48-hour issue. So back to surviving 24, 48 hours with some perseverance, with some emotional self-control, you're going to feel a lot better coming out of it at the end of the day. If it's that short of a situation and you did that, versus letting the self-control go run wild, what I like to call as a kite in a hurricane. If you're a kite in a hurricane, at the end of the day, you're going to feel pretty silly when things settle back down again, which they ultimately almost always do.
That's very true. That's fascinating. Well, and to your point, it sounds like this individual surrounded himself with the right people and got the information he needed to help him through that. Whether it's the way you think or not, he sought out the information, or he at least had the right people to come approach it.
He did, so. Absolutely. And that's a very good attribute. Actually, when I think about it, the ability to identify people that you should take advice from is a critical thing in your development, whether that's a formal mentor or not. Yes. Having the ability to judge people that are going to give you the right advice is a critical aspect of moving forward, in my opinion. And when I say, good judgment, what I mean is you pick people that have agendas about your particular situation. It's not a good chemistry for making the right decision. But you find people that are just trying to help you with no hidden agenda. That's going to be the right type of person to seek out.
Do you have a personal board of advisors that you speak with when you have?
Yeah, I do. I have my investor is somebody that I reach out to a lot. We have a fairly good relationship, although it can only be so good because it's the investor management relationship, yes. which is an interesting one. But I also, to be honest with you, because I have over time now at the company I'm in, I've developed a group of people around me from a management team standpoint that I'm very close to, that I do trust. And so I kind of have the luxury now of having a group of solid contributors that care about me as much as they do the rest of the organization. So I get good advice that way.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah, we all need those those individuals who will tell us the truth.
That's right.
Whether good or bad.
Exactly.
Tell it to us how it is. One final question for you. Individuals who are looking to really take that next step in their career, or if they're in a sales role, really looking to get to that next level, whatever that is for them. Individuals who are just motivated, but they don't necessarily know how to do it, like how to take that next step, what it is, what they need to do. As you look back at your career and what you've done, what advice would you give these individuals if you want to use your words, step it up, if you want to get to that next level, this is what you need to do?
There were opportunities that, in specific instances, that others, my peers, were not willing to take on because they were risky. That was in one specific situation in sales, was that our sales organization at the time was trying to branch out into new products and services. And they wanted somebody in the company to step up as the subject matter expert and specifically carry the bag for selling a specific set of products that we'd never sold before in this organization. And they asked at this point in time, this group of salespeople that I was one of, nobody wanted it because it meant that you had to step up and learn new things, right? So most of these guys had been selling this stuff for a long, long time. Why learn something new? And secondly, there was risk, because if we found out that our organization, our company, was just not the sales channel that companies wanted to buy this kind of product from, well, then it could potentially be a failure, right? Yes. And I looked at it completely the opposite. I looked at it and said, well, okay, I'm in a competitive situation with a bunch of people that I'm competing with, not in a negative way, but just competition in sales. And I looked at it completely different. I thought if I could pull it off, if I could be successful doing this, I would have set myself apart from all my peers. And I took that opportunity, and I did take that product on, and it was to be honest, it was, I'm still floored, but it was a big success, and it did change the way or the types of services we were capable of selling at the time. And it was a big success for me specifically, and it did exactly what I said. It set me apart, and I got all the bells and whistles and kudos from it, and it got me a level of recognition with the organization, with the management team, that frankly, if I'd have sat on the sidelines, I would have never seen. And probably, to be honest with you, if I wouldn't have done that, I may have never been able to distance myself from my competitors in the company.
That's pretty wild, and that's unbelievably powerful too, because you think about those unique opportunities that are sitting there waiting for each of you watching this to take, and are you going to be the one that grabs it and runs with it? I don't care if you're in accounting, I don't care if you're in sales, I don't care what function you are employed in an organization. What is sitting there, what idea is sitting there that you can take and run with and have confidence and belief in yourself? Jim, thank you so much for your time. I could go on and on and on, and I'm sure you all want me to go on and on with Jim today, but I have to end it now. Thank you so much. Please, everyone, take the nuggets from it, reflect, see what people you need to surround yourself with, what ideas do you need to present to your management team, what opportunities can you grab and step up to today. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you in just about a week.